Welcome back to Spiritual Days.
You know, sometimes the title just grabs you, and this one definitely did for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're diving into Thelema today.
All right.
It's a philosophy, a spiritual system, like a whole way of looking at the world
Mm-hmm.
that's sparked its fair share of debate.
Oh, I bet.
So you've shared some fascinating material with me.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
A YouTube essay that really breaks down the basics,
Right.
and excerpts from a book exploring Thelema's connection to ancient Egypt.
Cool.
So we're going to unpack it all and see if we can't get to the heart of what Thelema is really about.
Sounds good.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's a fascinating blend, isn't it?
Right.
Ancient Egyptian mythology meeting this drive for modern spiritual exploration.
Yeah.
And not just any mythology.
Right.
Horus, the god of kingship in the sky, is central to Thelema.
Wow.
That's a pretty bold starting point.
Okay, so before we get ahead of ourselves, let's rewind to the beginning. Where does this whole Thelema thing even come from?
Okay, so the story starts in 1904, Cairo.
Aleister Crowley, poet, mystic, and yes, some would say ceremonial magician, has what he believes is a profound mystical experience.
Mm-hmm.
Over 3 days, at the same hour each day, he receives a text
Wow.
dictated by a voice claiming to be Aiwas.
Okay.
That text becomes the Book of the Law,
What?
the foundation of Thelema.
Intense. Okay, so what does this Book of the Law actually say?
It proclaims a new spiritual era,
Mhm.
the Aeon of Horus,
Okay.
and with it, a radical shift in how we approach spirituality.
Okay.
Thelema emphasizes self-liberation
Okay.
and individual power,
Mhm.
which is a stark contrast to traditional religious doctrines that often prioritize obedience and submission to a higher authority.
So it's less about following rules and more about figuring out your own path, your own purpose? I
Exactly.
can already see why that might be controversial,
Yeah, for sure.
especially back then.
Yeah.
And then there's the most famous or infamous Thelemic law. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Right.
I mean, that one tends to raise eyebrows,
You.
to say the least.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, I have to admit, when I first heard that, I thought, well, that's just an excuse for people to do whatever they want, no consequences.
Right.
But I'm guessing there's more to it than that.
There is a lot more to it than that.
Okay.
That's a very superficial reading.
Right.
The key is understanding the concept of true will.
Okay.
Think of it as your deepest purpose, the reason you exist encoded in your very being, do what thou wilt, isn't about following fleeting desires or acting on impulse.
Go.
It's about aligning every choice, every action with that true will.
So it's not about just like
No,
doing whatever you want whenever you want.
not at all.
It's more about,
It actually requires tremendous discipline and self-awareness.
so it's not about hedonism, it's about self-mastery.
Yes.
Okay.
Thelema challenges us to move beyond a purely pleasure-seeking mindset
Right.
and really grapple with what drives us,
Mhm.
what our true motivations are.
Okay.
It's about making choices that reflect our most authentic selves, even when those choices are difficult.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But how do you even begin to figure out what your true will is?
Yeah.
Is it something you just know instinctively?
Yeah.
Or is there a process for uncovering it?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And one that we'll explore further as we go deeper into Thelema.
Good.
It's not always a straightforward answer.
Right.
And it can involve a lot of introspection, self-reflection, and even some specific practices that Crowley recommended.
Well, I'm definitely intrigued to learn more about those practices. But before we get there, I want to go back to Horus for a minute.
Okay.
You mentioned he's central to Thelema.
Right.
What is it about this particular Egyptian god that resonated with Crowley in the Thelemic worldview?
Horus, especially in his form as Hor-Parkrat, or Harpocrates, represents potential new beginnings, the drive to self-actualize.
Okay.
Crowley saw the Aeon of Horus as a time for humanity to step into its power, to embrace individual responsibility for spiritual growth, and to move away from outdated restrictive paradigms.
So it's not just about doing whatever you want. It's about figuring out what you should be doing,
Right.
what your purpose is,
Yeah.
and then having the strength and willpower to actually make it happen.
Exactly.
I can see how that idea could be both empowering and a little daunting at the same time.
Ah!
Like, whoa, okay, big task.
Yeah, big responsibility.
Yeah. So, and that brings us to another key concept, love.
Right.
The second part of that famous Thelemic law is love is the law, love under will.
Right.
Ooh, now this is where it gets really interesting for me.
Okay.
We've all got our own ideas about what love means, and our culture often romanticizes self-sacrifice in the name of love.
Yeah.
So how does Thelema approach this complex emotion?
Thelemic love is about choosing relationships, passions, and pursuits that are in alignment with your true will.
Okay.
And it's not about disregarding others' needs or feelings. It's about recognizing and respecting their sovereign path while pursuing your own.
So it's not about losing yourself in a relationship,
No.
but rather finding someone who supports and encourages you on your own journey.
Precisely.
Okay.
It challenges us to examine our relationships and ask ourselves, do they empower us?
Yeah.
Do they support our true will, or do they limit it?
Wow. That's a powerful question to consider, isn't it?
It is.
Whether we subscribe to Thelema or not, the idea of choosing relationships that align with our deeper purpose is something we can all reflect on.
Totally.
Yeah. And speaking of powerful forces, we can't forget the three divine voices that speak through the Book of the Law, Nuit Hadit and Rahu Quit.
Right.
Now, these aren't deities in the traditional sense.
Right.
They're more like cosmic forces
Yeah.
that represent different aspects of reality. Ooh, okay, this sounds intriguing. Tell me more about these forces. What do they represent?
Sure.
And how do they fit into the whole Thelemic framework?
So Nuit represents infinite potential, the vastness of the cosmos, the endless possibilities that exist within us. Hadit is the spark of consciousness, the awareness that experiences truth and drives us to seek it. And Rahu Quit.
Yeah.
He's the force of transformation, the catalyst that pushes us to break free from limitations and step into our power.
So they're not gods you pray to,
Right?
but forces you work with,
Yeah,
aspects of reality you tap into.
exactly.
Okay, so I'm starting to get a better picture of this.
Good.
Understanding these forces is key to understanding how Thelema views the path to higher consciousness.
Right.
It's not just about understanding the concepts.
Right.
It's about putting them into action,
Yes.
using them as tools for personal and spiritual growth.
Absolutely.
This is all starting to paint a really fascinating picture.
I think so.
We've got the Book of the Law, the Aeon of the Horus, do what thou wilt, these cosmic forces. But what about the man behind it all? Aleister Crowley. He was a pretty controversial figure, to say the least.
Indeed.
I'm curious to hear your take on him.
He was indeed. Crowley earned the label the wickedest man alive from the press.
Oh, wow.
He was provocative, a deliberate challenger of societal norms, and that definitely fueled the media's demonization of him.
Right.
But to understand Thelema, we need to look beyond the sensationalized headlines and the often distorted image of Crowley himself.
So was there any truth to the wickedest man alive label?
Yeah.
Or was it all just media hype and misunderstanding?
It's a complex question.
I bet it is.
Crowley was certainly a showman, and he seemed to relish pushing boundaries.
Okay.
But we have to separate the popular image of him from the actual tenets of Thelema.
Okay.
Thelema embraces individual spiritual exploration, and that can be threatening to systems built on control.
So maybe his wickedness was more about his refusal to conform than any actual evil deeds.
That's a key point.
Okay.
The accusations of devil worship and the like were largely unfounded.
Okay.
Thelema doesn't align with traditional notions of good and evil. It's about personal responsibility and self-discovery, which can be a radical idea in a world that often prizes obedience and conformity.
It really makes you think about how often fear and misunderstanding shape our perceptions of individuals and philosophies.
Yeah.
We're so quick to judge based on appearances or what we hear from others.
It's a human tendency, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is.
But in Crowley's case, the sensationalized stories often overshadow the core principles of Thelema.
Right.
It's essential to look beyond the headlines and examine the philosophy itself.
And that's exactly what we're doing here today.
Absolutely.
We're peeling back the layers of controversy and trying to get to the heart of what Thelema is really about.
I like it. Yeah, it's like we were saying, sometimes the messenger overshadows the message.
Right.
But if we peel back those layers of controversy, what we find at the heart of Thelema is a call to self-discovery.
Okay.
A challenge to break free from limitations and embrace our authentic selves.
You know, it strikes me that so many of us are living lives that aren't truly our own.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we get caught up in expectations, societal pressures, the daily grind, and we lose sight of what truly matters.
For sure.
So does Thelema offer a way out of that trap?
It certainly provides a framework for navigating those challenges.
Okay.
It encourages you to step back and ask those big questions.
Mm.
Who am I? What am I here to do? What brings me genuine joy and fulfillment?
So instead of giving you a set of rules to follow blindly,
Right.
Thelema encourages you to define your own path your own values.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about taking responsibility for your own spiritual journey. And that can be both incredibly liberating and a bit terrifying.
Okay. I'm getting a little nervous now.
Right.
If Thelema is all about forging your own path,
Yeah.
how do you even begin to figure out what that path is?
Right.
We touched on this earlier.
Yeah.
But can we dig a little deeper?
Of course.
Yeah.
Thelema isn't just about abstract concepts.
Right.
It offers practical tools for self-discovery.
Okay.
Crowley recommended keeping a magical diary, not just a regular journal, but a detailed record of your thoughts, dreams, emotions, even seemingly insignificant events.
Wow.
The idea is to analyze those entries over time,
Okay.
to look for patterns and insights that reveal your deeper self.
So it's like a treasure hunt for your true will, hidden in the details of your everyday life.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's about paying attention, being present, and noticing the subtle ways your true will is already trying to express itself.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But Thelema isn't all about introspection, is it? I seem to recall something about action being important, too.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
Along with introspection, Thelema emphasizes action.
Okay.
Crowley believed that every intentional act is a magical act, a way of shaping your reality.
Hold on. Every act, like choosing what to wear in the morning or making a cup of coffee.
Yes.
Really?
The idea is that once you're in alignment with your true will, every choice you make becomes an expression of that will, a way of bringing your inner world into alignment with your outer world. It's about living with intention.
Okay.
Making choices that reflect your deepest values.
So no pressure.
Yeah.
Right. Every decision, every action has this weight to it.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot to handle.
It can feel overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
But remember, it's not about striving for perfection.
Right.
It's about progress.
Okay.
It's about becoming more aware of our motivations and making choices that are aligned with our authentic selves. And sometimes that means making mistakes, learning from them, and course correcting.
Okay. That takes some of the pressure off.
Yeah.
I'm also curious about how this idea of every act being a magical act plays out in relationships.
Right.
We talked earlier about love under will.
Yeah.
But how does that translate into real-world interactions?
That's where the concept of love under will becomes crucial.
Okay.
It's about choosing to love in a way that supports both your true will and the true will of your partner. It's about empowering each other to grow and evolve without sacrificing your own individuality.
So it's not about sacrificing your own needs for the sake of the relationship,
Right.
but rather finding a balance between individual growth and mutual support.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that a healthy relationship is one where both individuals are free to pursue their own paths while supporting each other's journeys.
This is so different from the fairy tale romances we often see in movies and books, where the idea of finding your other half is so prevalent.
Yeah, totally.
Thelema seems to be saying, hey, you are already whole now. Go find someone who celebrates that wholeness.
Yes.
I like that.
And that can be a radical concept.
Yeah.
Especially in a world that often promotes codependency and self-sacrifice in the name of love.
Right.
Thelema encourages us to redefine what love looks like and to build relationships based on mutual respect, empowerment, and shared purpose.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the philosophical side of Thelema,
Right.
but I know there's also a practical ritualistic aspect to it. I have to admit, when I hear the word ritual, I tend to picture something a little, well, spooky.
I get it.
Can you shed some light on what Thelemic rituals are really like?
Of course.
Okay.
Ritual in Thelema isn't about summoning demons or casting spells like you might see in a Hollywood movie.
Right.
It's about using symbolic actions to shift your consciousness,
Okay.
to connect with those deeper forces we were talking about earlier, Nut Hadit and Rahu Quit.
So it's more about internal transformation than external spectacle.
Exactly.
Okay.
One of the foundational rituals in Thelema is the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram.
Okay.
It's not about banishing evil spirits in the literal sense.
Right.
It's about clearing your mind of negativity, strengthening your focus, and aligning yourself with your highest purpose.
It sounds like a form of energetic hygiene, a way to clear your mental and emotional space and create a more receptive state of mind.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And beyond specific rituals like the LBRP,
Yep.
Thelema encourages us to view our everyday actions as ritual.
Okay. Remember how we talked about every intentional act being a magical act?
Yeah.
Well, that principle applies here as well.
Okay, so back to brushing our teeth and eating our dinner.
Exactly.
Those can be rituals, too. I'm starting to see how this all ties together.
Yes.
Okay.
It's about bringing that same intentionality and awareness to every aspect of our lives.
Okay.
By infusing even mundane activities with purpose and meaning, We transform them into opportunities for growth and self-discovery.
Wow. I'm starting to see how Thelema is more than just a set of beliefs.
Hmm?
It's a whole way of life.
You did?
A way of approaching the world with intention awareness and a deep understanding of your own power.
It is.
It is a huge shift in thinking.
It is.
We've talked about so many fascinating aspects of Thelema,
Right.
the Aeon of Horus, true will, love under will, magical rituals.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't forget the man who brought it all together, Aleister Crowley.
Right.
He was, and still is, a figure shrouded in controversy.
How can we reconcile his often scandalous reputation with the profound teachings of Thelema?
That's a question that many people grapple with when they first encounter Thelema.
Right.
It's tempting to dismiss the entire philosophy based on Crowley's personal life and the sensationalized stories that surround him.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
But I think it's important to remember that he was a product of his time.
Right.
A man who deliberately challenged social norms and paid the price for it.
Yeah, the more we talk about Crowley, the more I see him as a kind of anti-hero.
Yeah.
A rebel who refused to conform and shook things up, whether people liked it or not.
Absolutely.
But does focusing on his personality distract us from the real message of Thelema?
It can if we let it.
Right.
Remember, we have to separate the man from the message.
Go on.
Crowley may have been the founder of Thelema,
Yeah.
but the philosophy itself is much bigger than any one individual.
So let's talk about that message.
Okay.
If we had to boil it down to one core idea, what would you say is the essence of Thelema?
To me, the essence of Thelema is the radical notion that each individual has the power to shape their own reality. It's about recognizing your own divinity, taking responsibility for your choices, and living a life of purpose and intention.
Okay.
It's about embracing your true will and aligning your actions with that deepest sense of purpose.
And that, my friend, is a powerful message.
It is.
Regardless of whether you subscribe to Thelema or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a message that resonates across cultures and spiritual traditions.
Mm.
It's a call to awaken to our full potential and to live lives that are authentically our own.
Yeah, it's like Thelema saying, hey, you have this incredible power within you,
Right.
but it's up to you to unlock it. It's not going to be handed to you on a silver platter.
Nope.
You have to do the work to confront your shadows and embrace the unknown.
Right.
And sometimes that could be pretty scary.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I think a lot of people might hear all this and think, that sounds great in theory, but I'm just an ordinary person. I don't have any special powers or abilities.
Right.
What would you say to those folks?
I would say that Thelema isn't about having supernatural powers. It's about recognizing the power that already exists within you,
Okay.
that creative force, that spark of divinity that resides in each and every one of us.
Mm.
We all have the capacity for greatness, for self-actualization, for living a life that is truly aligned with our true will.
So it's not about becoming superhuman. It's about becoming fully human.
Yes.
Embracing all that we are, the good and the bad, the light and the shadow.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
It's about integrating all aspects of ourselves into a whole authentic self.
Mm.
It's about recognizing that our perceived flaws and imperfections are often the very things that make us unique and give us strength.
You know, as we're talking about this, I keep thinking about that phrase from the Book of the Law. Every man and every woman is a star.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful image, evoking this sense of individuality and brilliance.
It is, and it speaks to that inherent divinity that Thelema emphasizes.
Right.
We are all unique, radiant beings, each with our own path to follow our own light to shine.
Right.
But sometimes we forget that, don't we?
Oh, we do.
We get caught up in comparing ourselves to others and trying to fit in dimming our own light to make others feel more comfortable.
It's so easy to do that.
Yeah.
Especially in a world that's constantly telling us who we should be and how we should live.
For sure.
But Thelema seems to be saying, forget all that. Embrace your uniqueness, your individuality,
Yeah.
your own particular brand of stardust.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming your power, your authenticity, your right to shine brightly.
Mm-hmm.
It's about recognizing that the world needs your unique gifts, your perspective, your way of being.
Right.
And that's where the practices of Thelema come in.
Well,
They're tools for rediscovering your true self, for rekindling that inner flame, for remembering that you are indeed a star.
so it's a journey that each of us has to take on our own. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, no magic formula for finding your true will and living a Thelemic life.
Exactly. Thelema provides a framework, a set of principles, but ultimately it's up to each individual to find their own path,
Right.
their own way of connecting with their true will and expressing it in the world.
Okay.
It's about exploring, experimenting, making mistakes, and learning from them. It's about embracing the journey, not just the destination.
You've given us so much to think about today. If you could leave our listener with one final thought, one key takeaway from our deep dive into Thelema, what would it be?
I would say this. Thelema is a call to awaken to your own power, to embrace your individuality, and to live a life of purpose and intention. It's a path of self-discovery, of challenging your limitations, and of creating a life that is authentically your own.
Right.
It's not always easy, but it is incredibly rewarding.
It sounds like it.
So explore these ideas, experiment with the practices, and see where the journey takes you.
Yeah.
You might be surprised by what you discover about yourself and the world around you.
It's been an amazing journey exploring Thelema with you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and for guiding us through this fascinating world of self-discovery and spiritual exploration.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, the journey doesn't end here.
Right.
Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep shining your light.
That's great advice. Thanks again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.